what I do is I look for behavior. Like I'm a behavioral marketer. I like to look at behavior that identifies what a person's interested in. So for example, somebody for selling email lists, anybody who's emailing me, there's no shortage of those people, right? There's no shortage of people sending me emails
True.
trying to sell me stuff.
That's very
so it's like, again, the person has raised their hand. They're saying I'm an email marketer.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I could just email them back and say, hey, I got your email. I think you could get some better results if you make a few tweaks. Here's a free PDF to show you some scripts that are proven to work, yada, yada, yada. Now I've got that, now they're in my universe, right?
That makes sense.
So again, their behavior has identified them as a prospect.
This is another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast, and my guest today is the esteemed Cody Butler. And Cody is an entrepreneur, a SaaS founder, and a pretty well-known internet marketer. So Cody, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be on. Thank you.
So I know you've done a couple of really interesting things, but what is Cody Butler all about?
So look, I'm about my family. I'm about my wife and children is what I'm about. And everything I do is about providing them with a better life and giving my children more opportunity and more chance to get ahead than what I had. So ultimately, I do a lot of things. I have a lot of businesses. I have a lot of interests. But ultimately, it's like, I'm about my family is what I'm about.
Well, that's a great answer. And you're in Sydney, Australia, correct?
I certainly am. Yes, down under.
I have not been there, I'm sorry, but hopefully one day we'll be allowed to travel again. So,
well, maybe, who knows?
I can come visit you. So,
great place.
What are you working on these days, Cody? Because I know you mainly as both a SaaS founder and then LinkedIn lead generation, but I know you got some other stuff on the go. So, what are you working on these days?
Yeah, so my main thing these days is I'm working with coaches, course creators, experts, marketing agencies, people in that space, which is very interesting. I've kind of shied away from that for a little while, but at the end of the day, I'm like, well, that's kind of how I've been making my money for the last 5 years. I started out as one thing, and I got really good at that, and then I started educating people in the methods I was using to grow businesses, and it kind of morphed into becoming the expert, becoming the course creator, becoming the author, speaker, so on and so forth. So I kind of woke up here recently and go, well, that's what I am. That's my business. I'm a course creator. I'm an expert. I'm a marketer. That's who I need to be working with, and those are the people that I need to be helping because that's authentic for me right now.
And so what are the sort of problems that you're seeing? Especially, I know we always refer in the last 6-8 months about things have changed, but have things changed for your clients, and what are some of the problems that you're seeing they're having?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the challenges that we're facing right now are nothing new. Every X number of years, 20 years, a cataclysmic change comes. So this might be the first time that we've dealt with this kind of change. But if you look at, at some point, the newspaper ruled and then radio showed up, and then radio ruled and then television showed up, and then television ruled, then the internet showed up, and then the internet ruled, and now whatever next is going to show up, right? So it's like every 20 or so years, the business community in terms of marketing has to reinvent itself and adapt. And those who are able to do that do very well. And those who don't simply don't, they don't survive is what happens. So all that's happening right now is the strong are being elevated and the weak are being eliminated, which is, not a nice thing to say, but it's what is going on. People are spending less money right now. They're a little more nervous to spend, it seems like to me. They would rather hold on to it if they can. So unless you're a great marketer, unless you can really convey the benefits that you offer, and you can really show people that if they invest with you into your product, your service, or whatever it is, they're going to see more come back than what's going out. You're not going to do so well. But if you can do that, this is a great opportunity to really elevate yourself and take your business to the next level for sure.
So the challenge, it sounds like, is the same as before, which is getting that message across for smaller agencies, smaller companies that are kind of startup. How do you cut through that? What's the key to forming that message and getting it out to the right people?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The main thing is, what benefit do you provide and who do you provide it to? what benefit do you provide and who do you provide it to? So a lot of times I'll ask people, and this is marketing 101 really, but at the end of the day, it's basics. That it's set plays that win games. It's solid players that win championships. It's not superstars that win championships. It's the solid players that give them the platform, right? It's the set plays that win games. So the number one thing you've got to ask yourself is, what outcome do I provide and who do I provide it for? And summarize that in one sentence, or even better, one word. So we were just having a brief conversation before we started recording here. And some of my businesses, like LinkedIn to Profits, what do you think that is about? Lead Find Pro software, what do you think that is about? It's like, can people ascertain in the snap of a finger, is this for me, and what is it going to do for me? Those are the things. And then succinctly put that into one, really ideally 1 or 2 words, but at the most 1 sentence.
That's very interesting. So I think, I'm trying to think of who it was. It might have been I can't remember who it was, but they kind of clued me in the same idea. So I think it's like, what they said was, unless you have $10 million, you don't really have anything you can build a brand with. You need to clearly say, and I think that seems like your strategy of what you're saying, which is you need people to look at the business and know what it does.
Exactly right. So, I mean, if I say, I help coaches, course creators, experts, and marketing agencies generate more high-ticket clients with 0 ad spend. Is this for you? Is this something that you want? What's the outcome, right? Straight away. I'm a marketing agency. I want more high-ticket clients, and I want to do that without spending very much or any money on ads. It's like, well, okay, this is worth further investigation versus saying, hey, I'm, whatever, I had a company called Web360, which wasn't the best name. What do you do? Well, I'm the founder and CEO of Web360. Yeah. Well, you've got to ask me some questions now. What's Web360? Digital marketing company. Well, who do you work with? I work with marketing agencies, course creators, consultants, experts, SaaS founders. Well, what do you do? It's like, you've got to now draw that out of me. That company name requires, or that elevator pitch to some extent requires that you ask me 3 or 4 questions to determine if this is even relevant to you.
That makes sense. So once you have the message down, what are you finding? Because I think there's a lot of confusion out there and frustration around how you go from 0 to 1 of getting the attention of the person that you want to talk to. What are you seeing that's effective? Like, if you had to start from scratch, you don't have a list, you don't have anything, and I'm sure you deal with people like that all the time. Like, what is working?
So the first thing you got to do is you've got to identify the outcome that they want, not your service, not your product, they don't want your product, they don't want your service, they want an outcome. So what is the outcome that they want? And then create some kind of bait, some kind of lead magnet that leads them towards that outcome, right? So a good example is I exited a software company this year, which was an generated email list for you. So I asked myself the question, well, what would somebody want? What does somebody want who would buy an email list? And what would be irresistible? So the answer that I came up with is they want outreach scripts for a cold email that's going to convert. So the lead magnet becomes 7 cold email scripts to generate clients that are proven to convert.
That makes sense. And then how
So go on, Mike.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so somebody who downloads a free PDF or free report, seven cold email scripts proven to work, or seven subject lines, 7 email subject lines that get an 80% plus open rate. I know for a fact they're interested in email marketing, so they've raised their hand. The invisible has become visible now. They've stuck their head out. They've raised their hand. Then I know that they're interested in email marketing, so I know that they're then going to be interested in email lists, right? So if I can show them how to turn my product that I'm going to sell, my email lists, into money, then they're going to be significantly more inclined to try that product, right? So I'm giving them I'm getting them first to raise their hand. Secondly, I'm giving them education on how to use the product that I'm going to offer them successfully to give them a fighting chance at an ROI. So as we said earlier on in this interview, like, people have to see immediately that they're going to get an ROI, or they're going to have a very good idea that they're going to get an ROI. So if I can give them scripts and subject lines that they can look at it and go, okay, well, I can see how that's going to produce great results, they're then going to see the investment in the email list as something that's going to return, give them an ROI basically. So that would be the number one thing. Identify what people want and give it to them. Don't give them your product.
That makes total sense. And then how are people able to find that lead magnet? Like, what are you seeing work out there? Because I think, you mentioned, for example, like doing it without ads. Are you using ads? Like, what's effective today to get to the person you want?
Yeah, so ads, advertised, like paid ads, I think should be an extension of an organic strategy that's working. If you can't make organic work, you can't make, think of it like, paid ads are gasoline, organic is the spark. It's the flame. Like, it doesn't matter how much gasoline you've got, you can have 10,000 gallons, and if you don't have a spark, it's not going to ignite.
That makes sense.
You've got to have that spark, and if you've got that spark, then the paid ads are what's going to really blow that up and make it work. So what I do is I look for behavior. Like I'm a behavioral marketer. I like to look at behavior that identifies what a person's interested in. So for example, somebody for selling email lists, anybody who's emailing me, there's no shortage of those people, right? There's no shortage of people sending me emails trying to sell me stuff.
That's very
so it's like, again, the person has raised their hand. They're saying I'm an email marketer.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I could just email them back and say, hey, I got your email. I think you could get some better results if you make a few tweaks. Here's a free PDF to show you some scripts that are proven to work, yada, yada, yada. Now I've got that, now they're in my universe, right?
That makes
so again, their behavior has identified them as a prospect. So with the LinkedIn stuff, I mean, you were in my LinkedIn training, Mike. I mean, what I do there is like, I'll go on LinkedIn and I'll find people. I'll use one of the search features in LinkedIn that says, has posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. Well, there's only one reason somebody would be posting on LinkedIn, right?
They want attention.
Yeah, exactly right. So instead of reaching out to 10,000 people, I'd rather reduce that list down to 500 people and say, okay, hey, Mike, I saw you posting on LinkedIn. I'm assuming it's because you want more business. Here's a few scripts that we've used that have been really effective. Try them out, see if they work. By the way, if you want any more help with this, let me know.
Oh, that makes total sense. So I like your approach, which is you're saying, first of all, prove that they're out there and they'll respond by doing it organically.
Yeah.
Which is, don't go to the paid stuff until you've proven that this is the audience and this is what they look like. And that makes total sense. And LinkedIn's a great tool to find people. So that makes a lot of sense too.
Unless you just don't like money, of course.
I mean, some people don't. And I think they're
You've got loads of resources. You've got loads of resources at your disposal, Mike. So groups are a great way. So Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, because this is a second level of qualification, right? And lots of people join LinkedIn because it's the thing to do. It doesn't mean they're using LinkedIn. Somebody that joins LinkedIn and then joins a group, that's another level of hand raising.
Interesting. Okay.
So you want to identify behaviors that indicate that this person is interested in what you offer. That's really, really important.
Yeah, and I think it eliminates a lot of the confusion out there, because I think a lot of people think they got to spend money on Google AdWords, they got to spend money on Facebook ads, and then those are really tough, right? Because you don't really know what's going on the other side of the ad. You're kind of guessing, right? Whereas what your approach seems to be is, well, have a real conversation with somebody, even though it's not face-to-face, engage the person you think is your customer.
That's exactly right. I mean, the question you've got to ask yourself with automation, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer in automation. It's like, I've built all of my businesses off the back of automation ultimately, but it's like the question is, what are you automating? You've got to find what works. You don't have to do very much. It's like if I'm looking for a new concept, or if I'm trying to validate a new concept, I'll go to LinkedIn or I'll go to email marketing, and I'll see the responses that I'm getting, and I'll see the conversations, and I'll see, I'll see the feedback that I'm getting, because automation is very, it's very hard. I guess it's hard as in solid like this. It's like it doesn't give you any feedback apart from you get a pass or a fail with automation. You get a result, you get an X or an O. That's what you get. Somebody buys or they don't. You don't get to see the feedback that's coming. Whereas if I send you a message on LinkedIn, or you and I had a few messages here recently on Facebook, it's like you asked me a few questions.
Right.
I said, hey, Mike, are you interested in X, Y, and Z? And you go, yeah, potentially, but X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, make a note of that. These are some concerns that he has. So if Mike has them, do other people have these concerns as well? And how can I answer these concerns now through automation, so that the questions that you ask me are now converted into an automated email sequence, or an FAQ or something like that allows me to address those objections in bulk. But had I not reached out to you personally, I never would know what those objections, or what, not even necessarily objections. You just had a few questions. You just like, okay, well,
really,
is this for me?
Does it fit? And
is this a fit?
Yeah. And I think that's what I found unique about you, Cody, is that you're personable, but actually personable. Like, you're not giving the veneer of personable. You're actually talking to people, and then it's not like offensive to you that they have questions. You're learning from it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I've built 2 very successful software companies now. I exited one this year, and it's like, one of the keys to that is like they were very, very, very customer centric. I'm completely agnostic. I don't look at a project and go, this is my vision and this is what I want. I go, what does the market need? What are they willing to pay for? And what's going to make these people's lives easier? So, it's like, it does pain me. I get a lot of questions, and it does just like, more questions or whatever. But it's like, do you want to succeed or do you not want to succeed is the question.
Well, that's always a question. But
because if you want to succeed, then you better get in touch with your client base, and you better get in touch with what they want and what they need. And, a lot of times people don't ask for feedback because they're afraid that feedback is going to result in a negative consequence, like, a confrontation, a refund.
That's
something negative.
That's I never thought of that, which is like there's potentially conflict on the other end of the question.
Well, there's quite often conflict, because that's like, how you get. If the product was perfect, then the reason you get the product to where people are willing to buy it and willing to, your stick rate's there, your churn is down, people are buying it, people are happy with it, you're getting good feedback, good reviews, referral business, everything that you need to grow, is because you've created a product that people want. And the way you've created a product that people want is to give them a product that they weren't exactly happy with and fix it very quickly.
I like it. It seems so simple when you say it, but it makes sense. It's almost like, you can hide behind all the automation and ads you want, but unless you're talking to real people, and I like your approach, which is talk to real people that match your ideal client and figure out, is this real or not? And then you can scale it because you have the right messaging and the right target. I love that.
Yeah, they're going to tell you, the audience are going to tell you what they want. And that's what you go with. You don't, I generally don't use my own language. I don't use messaging that I want. And the first software that I built ended up being the final iteration was very different to the vision that I had. And in fact, we scrapped it 3 times at great expense.
Wow.
The first iteration, we just threw it out the window. The second iteration, that was pretty much thrown out of the window as well. And then the third iteration was like, okay, now we're actually getting close to what people want. And that software did really well. I think we made like $750,000 in the first 12 months, which more than recouped the development cost. But had we gone, if I'd have just gone, look, I've dropped X amount of money into the development here, I'm going with this regardless. It's like, well, you've created a product people don't want. They're not going to buy it. So now all you're going to do is put more money to promote a product that people don't. You're going to end up more in the hole.
That's really interesting you say that, because I built a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And one of the most frustrating things is you design something. I've learned that you can listen to what the customer says, but they're not always right. And they haven't validated it really. And no matter how much you encourage them, they don't always go to validate. Look, take these designs and go make sure this is what you want to build. And then they build it and it's like, oh, that didn't work. And it's like you had the guts to turn around twice, it sounds like, and rebuild the product until it was successful. So it was like, oh, we're off a little bit. So that's a really interesting approach that you took.
Yeah, success comes in iteration, Mike. Very few people hit the bullseye right out of the gate, right? The military don't. They launch an artillery round downrange, and they got a spotter down there going, saying, hey, you're off by quite a bit. You need to. It's like nobody hits unless it's just a complete fluke, right? And you don't want to build I'll start lots of businesses because I'm beyond the fluke stage. I'm beyond that. This is just a lucky, I've just lobbed a round down range and it's just landed in the right place by luck. It's like, I understand. And it's like, I understand that the first iteration is probably going to be scrapped or highly modified. So I don't go, well, I've got a $10,000 budget. 9,000 is going into the first iteration.
Interesting.
I'll talk to the developer and I'll be like, okay, well, my budget for this first iteration is 1,500. You can do it for that or you can't. This is not a negotiation.
Makes a lot of sense. That's actually a very shrewd way to approach it. Like, listen, we're going to lift this up. It's going to be redone. Don't go crazy. And it's funny because I don't know if you've read Eric Ries, but I think people have this concept of an MVP and they think it's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
They're throwing everything into the design. It's like, oh, we gotta have this button and feature. And it's like, so it's interesting the approach you take. That's probably why you're successful, because you've got iteration built into the model.
And a big thing too is allow your users to pay you to beta test your product. I'll always launch. So I'll launch a product and I'm not necessarily working out all of the bugs because it would take me forever and I can't. It's like, I would rather give it to 100 people at a discount and then them come back and tell me, okay, this is a bug, this is a bug, this is a bug, this is a bug. There'll be a few people who ask for a refund, sure. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I go through the beta testing phase of all products and services. People will actually pay you, they'll pay me to beta test the product for you. And if it's too bad, you just give them the money back. And 9 times out of 10, though, it's a great way because you start that relationship. You get a bunch of people that they appreciate that they're getting some input into the product or the service. They appreciate that they're getting to give their feedback and shape it into what they want. And it massively reduces the curve of the beta testing and the bug, the eliminating the bugs part of the process. It's a great way to do it for sure.
I love it. That is great advice. Well, Cody, I want to be conscious of your time here. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you think is important?
I would just say imperfect action beats perfect action. Imperfect action beats imperfect or perfect inaction 100% of the time. I like you're not going to feel ready to launch. You're not going to feel ready to move forward. Put what you've got out there, as long as it's somewhat functional. And I always tell people, you may have seen a few of my emails. You're on my email list, I'm sure. It's like, I'll send an email out if I launch something and I'll say, I'm looking for a few crash test dummies.
Well, that certainly sets the expectations.
you just tell people up front, say, hey, look, I'm looking for a few crash test dummies. Here's a great opportunity. You're going to get in on this product, ground floor level at a huge discount. I'm going to get the feedback to beta test and make the corrections that's necessary. It's win-win, right? You're going to get a great discount. I'm going to get the feedback that I need, and it's win-win. I'm going to get paid to do this, and you're going to get a product at a reduced price. So don't be afraid to put your product out there, as long as it's functional to some extent, right? As long as it's functional to some extent. Don't be afraid to put it out there, whether it's a course or an agency service or a SaaS. It doesn't matter. Don't be afraid, because the one thing that I know that really I think makes the difference between me and other people that I work with or help is like, I know that I'll make it right.
Right.
I trust myself to make it right. So if I put something out there and it doesn't land where I want it to land and it creates a little storm, let's say, I trust myself to make it right. And I will make it right. As long as you've got that attitude, whatever I put out there, I'm going to deliver, I'm going to make it right. Everybody's going to leave their relationship with me whole. You're going to do very well. That's really the number one attitude. And if you have that attitude, it allows you to put stuff out there earlier than you probably feel comfortable doing. And the earlier you can put it out, the more feedback. The second software I did, I didn't need to do 3 iterations of it.
You just did.
I learned my lesson.
There you go. That's really interesting.
So that's the main thing.
I think you're in good company, Cody, because I don't know if you know who Reid Hoffman is, founder of LinkedIn. Never heard of that. Yeah. And in blitzscaling, I didn't realize, but he writes about this, saying, be willing to ship imperfect products.
You have to, or else you're just not going to. I mean, how do you make it perfect? I mean, the perfection comes in the feedback, right?
That makes total sense. All right. Well, how do people get in touch with you, Cody?
Yeah, so a few places. I'm on all the standard social media. If you want some free training, zeroadspendclients.com. is a good place to go. You can get some free training from there. Check it out.
And
it's
cool.
CodyButler.com. That's kind of a hub of information. You can find out everything that there is to know about me there. There's free trainings, there's paid trainings, there's a blog, there's a podcast on there, all kinds of stuff.
I love it. All right, we're going to wrap with a couple quick questions. The first is, if you could recommend only one book in the whole world that people read, what would that book be?
The Bible.
Oh, there you go.
Easy.
Older New Testament guy. I don't know.
All of it.
All of it. Okay.
The Jews have all the money because they read the first half of the book.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
That's where the money secrets are.
There are actually a lot of practical secrets in there, aren't there?
Yeah, the Bible is a very practical book. It's a spiritual book, and it's a practical book, and it's as practical as it is spiritual. So all of the money secrets are in the first half of the book.
Never thought of that. Maybe don't get me reading the Bible again. That's crazy. All right. If Jim Rohn says you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, who do you, Cody Butler, spend the most time with?
So I've got some friends here in Sydney. I've got probably the person I spend the most time with is a software. He's a SaaS owner actually. He's very, very successful. He's also an investment banker.
Oh wow.
I hang out with property investors. I look for people that make me feel small. I intentionally, I want to get around people and feel challenged. I want to feel like, Cody, you got to step it up, man. You know, you're not playing at the level you should be playing at here.
Well, that's consistent with why Jim Rohn said that, right? So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable, man. I've got some people I get around with and I just want to hide. I'm just like, they're talking about how they made, $50 million last year. And they're like, how did you do, Cody? Did you hit your goals? And I'm like, it wasn't the best year ever, but it wasn't.
Now I realize my goal was too small. Where were you last year? I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
How are you, Cody Butler, changing the world?
How am I changing the world? So I want to empower people to provide better lives for their families. So when I started out, like, nobody would help me and I didn't have the money to get the help that I needed. So I had to do stuff that, read a lot of books. I had to volunteer my services for people and go work for free for people and stuff like that, and really kind of find very creative ways to get the information that I needed to work my way out of the situation that I came from. So I want to help and empower business owners to create better lives for their families and to get the education that they need to pass on to their children to break that cycle of poverty forever.
I love it. That is a wonderful mission. The final thing is, when we have interesting people in the podcast, we like you to nominate other interesting people. It sounds like you know a few. We typically talk to experts or entrepreneurs, sometimes authors, about the person they serve, problems they solve, and how they make the world a better place. So who would you, Cody Butler, like to introduce us to and nominate as a future guest of Automate and Grow?
Yeah, so my SaaS founder friend here, Nick Thackerow, here in just down the road from where I live, is the founder of LeadsHooks, or LeadsHook, can't remember. LeadsHook.io, I think it is, which is a fantastic software. He's done a great job with growing that company. He's grown that up to major valuation now organically, and he's got some very interesting strategies how he's done that. So that would be who I would recommend talking to.
That's wonderful. So it's Nick.
I'll make that introduction.
Perfect. Is it Backerel?
I think it's Thackerow. I'll send you a message.
Sorry. Okay. My hearing was a little off.
Nick T. He goes by the name Nick T. So this is why.
There we go. I need to figure out the first letter then. Geez.
Nick T.
I want to first of all acknowledge you before we wrap up for the work that you do and all the people that you do help. And I want to invite you to participate in the future. I mentioned to you before that I'm working on something called Founders Pack, and there's a couple of events that would be probably a great fit for you. One is we have the winner takes all pitch events, and if you're ever interested in being a judge for one of those pitch events, would like to include you in that. And then we're going to be doing, I'm very focused on Austin, Texas, and we're going to be doing, not limited to Austin, Texas, but founders meetups, kind of a happy hour every Thursday. So I want to invite you to that as well.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Would love to.
All right, well, so let's wrap it up with a happy note, which is thank you, Cody Butler, for everything and your time today. And we look forward to talking to you again. And hopefully we will see you on a future episode of Automate and Grow with Nick Thackerell. And hopefully we're pronouncing Nick's name right.
Hopefully. Nick T. We'll just call him Nick T.
Nick T.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Cody. This has been another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast. We will see you on a future episode of Automate and Grow.